Welcome dear students to lecture 1 of module 5 one-way hash function. A one-way hash function h of m operates on an arbitrary length pre-image message m. It returns a fixed length hash value h. Small h equal to capital H of m where h is of length m. Many functions can take an arbitrary length input and return an output of fixed length. But one-way hash functions have additional characteristics that make them one-way. Given m, it is easy to compute h. Given h, it is hard to compute m such that h of m is equal to small h. Given m, it is hard to find another message m dash such that h of m is equal to h of m dash. The whole point of the one-way hash function is to provide a fingerprint of m that is unique. For an example, if Alice signed m by using a digital signature algorithm on h of m and Bob produced m dash, another message different from m where capital H of m is equal to h of m dash, then Bob would claim that Alice signed m dash. In some applications, one-wayness is insufficient. We need an additional requirement called collision resistance. It is hard to find two random messages m and m dash such that h of m is equal to h of m dash. The birthday attack is not based on finding another message m dash such that h of m is equal to h of m dash, but based on finding two random messages m and m dash such that h of m is equal to h of m dash. To survive birthday attack, most one-way hash functions produce 128-bit or larger hashes. Now next we will see what is this birthday attack. Birthday attack. Birthday attack is a type of cryptographic attack that belongs to a class of brute force attacks. It exploits the mathematics behind the birthday problem in probability theory. The success of this attack largely depends upon the higher likelihood of collisions found between the random attack attempts and a fixed degree of permutations as described in the birthday paradox problem. So we'll see what is birthday paradox problem. Let us consider the example of a classroom of 30 students and a teacher. The teacher wishes to find pairs of students that have the same birthday. Hence, the teacher asks everyone their birthdays to find such pairs. Intuitively, this value may seem small. For example, if the teacher fixes a particular date, say October 10, then the probability that at least one student is born on that day is 1 minus 364 by 365 whole to the power 30, which is about 7.9%. So previously we were fixing one particular date and checking for whether two students have birthdays on that particular date. Now instead of that, if you are going to check that two students are going to have a birthday on the common date is, then the probability here will be around 70% using the formula 365 factorial divided by 365 minus n factorial into 365 to the power n. So this is the birthday paradox problem. The following protocol shows how Alice could use a birthday attack to swindle Bob. Now say Alice prepares two versions of a contract. One is favorable to Bob, the other bankrupts him, which is favorable to Alice. Now Alice makes several subtle changes to each document and calculates the hash value for each. Alice compares the hash value for each change in each of the documents, looking for a pair that matches. She reconstructs the two documents that hashes to the same value. Alice has Bob sign the version of the contract that is favorable to him using a protocol in which he only signs the hash value. Now, at some time in the future, Alice substitutes the contract Bob signed in the one that he didn't. Now, she can convince an adjudicator that Bob signed the other contract. This is a big problem. So, one moral is to always make a cosmetic change to any document you sign. If Bob had done some cosmetic changes, maybe extra space if you'd have added, or extra a comma or a full stop if you'd have added, then the hash value would be different than whatever Alice had planned before, which she had created a hash and compared it and created another document which had the same hash value. Then Alice could not, the hash values would not match now, as Bob had already done some changes and then signed that document. So if this was done, then she could not prove that Bob had signed the document which was favorable to Alice. Length of one-way hash functions. Hash functions of 64 bits are just too small to survive a birthday attack. Most practical one-way hash functions produce 128-bit hashes. This forces anyone attempting the birthday attack to hash 2 to the power 64 random documents to find 2 that hash to the same value, not enough for a lasting security. Now, NIST, in its secure hash standards, uses a 160-bit hash value. This makes the birthday attack even harder, requiring 2 to the power 80 random hashes. The following method has been proposed to generate a longer hash value than a given hash function produces. Generate the hash value of a message using a one-way function listed in this book, which you'll be seeing in the upcoming lectures. Prepend the hash value to the message. Generate the hash value of the concatenation of the message and the hash value. Create a larger hash value consisting of hash value generated in step 1 and concatenated with the hash value generated in step 3. Repeat steps 1 through 3 as many times as you wish, concatenating as you go. Although this method has never been proved to be either secure or insecure, various people have some serious reservations about it. Overview of one-way hash function. It is not easy to design a function that accepts an arbitrary length input, let alone make it one-way. In the real world, one-way hash functions are built on the idea of compression function. This one-way function outputs a hash value of length n given an input of some larger length m. The inputs to the compression functions are a message block and the output of the previous blocks of text. The output is the hash of all blocks up to that point. That is, the hash of block mi is given by hi is equal to function of mi, hi minus 1. You can check the figure over here. It is a one-way function. To input to this one-way function is mi and hi minus 1. So output is hi. Hi minus 1 is a hashing from the previous block. This hash value along with the next message block becomes the next input to the compression function. The hash of the entire message is the hash of the last block. The pre-image should contain some kind of binary representation of the length of the entire message. This technique overcomes a potential security problem resulting from messages with different lengths possibly hashing to the same value. This technique is sometimes called MD strengthening. So next hash function what we are going to study about is SNAFRU. It is designed by Ralph Merkle. SNAFRU hashes arbitrary length messages into either 128-bit or 256-bit values. First, the message is broken into chunks, each 512 bits long, which is represented as m in length. The variable m is the length of the hash value. If the output is a 128-bit hash value, then the chunks are each 384 bits long. If the output is a 256-bit hash value, then the chunks are each 256 bits long. The heart of the algorithm is function h, which hashes a 512-bit value into an m-bit value. The first m bits of h's output are the hash of the block. The rest are discarded. The next block is appended to the hash of the previous block and hashed again. The initial block is appended to the strings of zeros. After the last block, if the message isn't an integer number of blocks long, zeros are used to pad the last block. The first m bits are appended to a binary representation of the length of the message and hashed one final time. Function h is based on E, which is a reversible block cipher function that operates on 512-bit blocks. H is the last m bits of the output of XORed with first m bits of the input of E. The security of SNAFRU resides in function E, which randomizes data in several passes. Each pass is composed of 64 randomizing rounds. In each round, a different byte of data is used as an input to an S box. The output word of the S box is XORed with two neighboring words of the message. Some rotations are thrown in too. Originally, SNAFRU was designed with two passes. Cryptanalysis of SNAFRU. Using differential cryptanalysis, Beham and Shamir demonstrated the insecurity of two-pass SNAFRU. Their attack finds pairs of messages that hash to the same values within minutes. So currently, Merkle recommends using SNAFRU with at least 8 passes, which will make it more secure. However, with this many passes, the algorithm is significantly slower than either MD5 or SHA. NHash is an algorithm invented by researchers at Nippon Telephone and Telegraph. NHash uses 128-bit message blocks, a complicated randomizing function, and produces a 128-bit hash value. The hash of each 128-bit block is a function of the block and the hash of the previous block. H naught is equal to I, where I is a random initial value and hi is g of, it is a function g of mi, hi minus 1. Mi is a message block and hi minus 1 is a hashing of the previous block in dot mi dot hi minus 1. The hash of the entire message is the hash of the last message block. The random initial value I can be any value determined by the user. It can be all zeros as well. The function g is a complicated one. In this figure, you can see the overview of the algorithm. Initially, the 128-bit hash of the previous message block, that is hi minus 1, has its 64-bit left half and 64-bit right half swapped. You can see here EXG block, here it is swapped. It is then XORed with the repeating sequence of 1 or 0 pattern. It is again 128-bit. And then it is XORed with the current message, that is MI. This message is then cascaded into N processing stages. Here it is 8 processing stages. See, PS, this is a processing stage. So we have 8 processing stages. Now the other input to the processing stage here is the previous hash value that we can check over here. It's hi minus 1, previous hash value. It is XORed with the one of 8 binary constant values. You can observe here V1. This is the binary constant values. One processing stage is given here. Previously we have seen that we have 8 processing stages. So here one processing stage is explained. The message block is broken into 432 bits. and the previous hash value is also broken into 432-bit values. The function f we will see later, it is again given in detail. So here in this, the output of one processing stage becomes the input to the next processing stage. After the last processing stage, the output is XORed with the mi and hi minus 1, and then the next block is ready to be hashed. This is what happens in the function f. Here you have two functions s0 and s1. So what is s0? S0 for is x1 and x2 means you have to rotate. It is a 2-bit rotation of x1 and x2 mod 256. And S1 is 2-bit rotation of x1 plus x2 plus 1 and mod with the 256. So here these are the functions of S0 and S1. This is what is happening in the function block for the every 32-bit here. Next hashing function is MD4. MD4 is a one-way function designed by Ron Rivest. MD stands for Message Digest. The algorithm produces a 128-bit hash or message digest of the input message. Rivest outlined his design goals for the algorithm. The first one is security. It is computationally infeasible to find two messages that hash to the same value. No attack is more efficient than brute force. Next one is direct security. MD4 security is not based on any assumption like the difficulty of factoring, as in RSA algorithm we have. Next is speed. MD4 is suitable for high-speed software implementations. It is based on a simple set of bit manipulations on 32-bit operands. Simplicity and compactness. MD4 is as simple as possible without large data structures or a complicated program. Favor little endian architectures. MD4 is optimized for microprocessor architectures. Larger and faster computers make any necessary translations. After the algorithm was first introduced, Bert den Boyer and Antoine Bosseliers successfully cryptanalyzed the last two of the algorithm's 3 rounds. In an unrelated cryptanalytic result, Ralph Merkle successfully attacked the first 2 rounds. Eli Beham discussed a differential cryptanalysis attack against the first 2 rounds of MD4. Even though these attacks could not be extended to the full algorithm, Rivest strengthened the algorithm. The result is MD5.